Hey folks, what's up? It's Jamie from Books and Ladders, and today we're diving into the enchanting world of dark fantasy with a review of Jasmine Skye's debut novel, Daughter of the Bone Forest. Before we get started with that, as a quick disclaimer, the publisher sent me a copy of this book for free and I'm choosing to review it. All of my opinions are entirely my own. So let's get started. Before we dive into the magical realms of the Bone Forest, I want to give you a pretty comprehensive content warning. Daughter of the Bone Forest contains themes of death, war, violence, bleeding, grief, fire and fire injury, animal death, bullying, hate crimes, panic attacks, and death of a parent specifically. If any of these topics are sensitive to you, please feel free to click away now, and this might not be the book that you want to read. Alright, so let's get into what the heart of this story is. Daughter of the Bone Forest follows Rosy, a bone familiar gifted with the ability to shift into animals marked with exposed bone. Her world takes a dramatic turn when she rescues Princess Shaw, a witch known as Death's Heir, leading Rosy to become enrolled at Witch Hall and involved in a destiny that is entangled in a looming war. Immediately when I finished this book, I knew it was going to be one of my favorite young adult fantasy releases in 2024. Not only does it combine some immaculate world building with really lush and descriptive settings and a really cool magic system, but it also has a really queer setting. It has that built-in diversity that doesn't take things at face value of being heteronormative. There's a lot of really complex and interesting relationship dynamics between people, especially with the sapphic love interests, and having some trans characters that are minor characters but really well developed as well. This is more than just your typical magic school setting. It really evolves to have that profound knowledge and nuance around what it means to have power and privilege, especially in the setting of politics. We obviously see that Princess Shaw is a princess. She has a lot of power, especially in terms of ruling the kingdom, but also in terms of people not even being able to pick who they want as their bone familiar until she does. That obviously has a big role to play in how her dynamics with Rosy are and the way that we perceive Shaw through Rosy's perspective, but also how we perceive Rosy through Shaw's perspective. When I first started reading this, I wasn't expecting some of the subtle intricacies to really have a major part of this. A lot of the conversations that happen early on in the book really develop into something that's important later on. But on top of that, the way that people form relationships, the way that people understand the world around them has a big impact on what they do, who they are, and how they play the game of politics. There are especially a lot of scenes at the beginning that don't necessarily feel like they have a lot of weight or power into what the rest of the story is going to be, but Jasmine Skye does an amazing job of weaving these in to what becomes a much larger conversation around who is allowed to have power and who is given privilege within this society. And we especially see this in the dynamic that Rosy has with her family and her family's profession, but also in the way that she interacts with her cousin who is already enrolled at Witch Hall before Rosy is able to get there. And talking about that characterization of Rosy, she really undergoes some enormous personal growth throughout this novel. You can really see it from how she takes the understanding of what her family is, what her family does, and how that impacts people, to translating it into what types of politics she would like to see transformed in the future, and really going beyond that to how does she show who she is, but how does she hide some of those pieces that she knows might be exploited in the future. When we talk about Rosy's character journey, it's a central theme of resilience. She is somebody who is underestimated at home, underestimated at school, but she knows what she's able to accomplish and do, and she uses that as her way of being able to move forward with everything that's going on. Rosy's perspective is in first person, so we definitely know what's on her mind during conversations, interactions, or just people watching. We know that she is thinking about certain people in certain ways and trying to really hide pieces of her that maybe she doesn't want other people to know right away, or that she doesn't trust people enough to provide that information to. She takes on that role of guarding herself and guarding what she holds near and dear to her. And we really see that translate into the relationship she builds with the underdogs in the story. But this is a dual perspective book, so we also have Princess Shaw's perspective as well, although this shifts into a third person perspective, so we don't have as much insight into what Shaw is thinking, which leaves a bit of an air of mystery because we can see her actions and we see things from the outside, almost as if we're getting another dimension of Rosy's perspective. But it's not the same thing as being right there, understanding her motives, her direction, what her character wants, beyond what we see her do in action and in Rosy's reaction. I think the most interesting part of Princess Shaw is how we see her morals and ethics grow and evolve throughout her relationship with Rosy. We can see how Rosy really has an impact on what Shaw believes, how Shaw behaves, and really seeing that translate into the way that Shaw views politics and power, at least in incremental bits. This is only book 1 of a series, so I imagine that there will be more in the future of what that development looks like and how Shaw intends to be a leader for this realm. Their relationship had a really interesting dynamic because Shaw obviously has the power and privilege being a princess, but she's also the most magical bone witch in the realm. And on the other hand, Rosy, even though she's trying to hide it, is one of the most powerful bone familiars. So the two of them together have this great magical chemistry, and that starts to translate into actual intimate chemistry as well. And seeing them grow together, the fights, the betrayals, the way that they really try to understand one another's perspectives and move forward is really great throughout this entire novel. And honestly, I can't say enough about the magic system. It was really fresh and innovative take on something that some people might have seen before. I know I have in other fantasy novels with bone magic and that kind of bone familiarity, but the bonding system was really interesting and unique. I liked the way that both of them were able to use each other's magic as a way to really enhance what they were able to do with what they already knew how to do. The dynamics of the bonding system that was part of this magic system actually added an extra layer to what it meant to be in a relationship. A lot of times the familiars and their witches would end up in relationships because they just felt so connected to one another, and it's really rare for them not to be because of how much they share between one another. So I really like seeing some of that resistance from both Rosy and Shaw to want to even come together in that way. I'm trying to keep this as spoiler-free as possible, and a lot of the things that I talked about are things that you probably could have inferred from the back flap, the summary, just other people's general reviews and some of the promotional items that have come out. But oh my gosh, was the ending just absolutely mind-blowing. I was really looking forward to seeing how this would end. In my mind, when I went into it, it was a standalone book. So when I got to the last 30 or so pages, I was wondering, how is this going to wrap up? And it ends on a huge cliffhanger. So it's definitely a series. I need the next book immediately, and I'm filming this in January. So that's obviously not going to happen anytime soon, since the book doesn't come out until the end of February, and then publishing takes about a year in between releases. But oh my goodness, it is such a cliffhanger, and I can't wait to see where it goes next. So with all that said and done, I rated Daughter of the Bone Forest 4 out of 5 stars. I thought it was a really imaginative, queer normative world, and a really good academic fantasy novel for young adults. Thank you for coming along on this journey through the Bone Forest with me. Daughter of the Bone Forest by Jasmine Skye releases on February 27th, which is the date that I'm posting this video, so you can purchase a copy now and get started on reading and scream with me about the cliffhanger. If you feel so inclined, you can use my affiliate link through bookshop.org, which is down in the description below. Don't forget to hit subscribe, like it, comment, all of those YouTube things. And until next time, happy reading!